Good evening. I'm Stan Mark, Vice Chair of the Class Act HR 73, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this evening's Meet Our Bridges webinar. The presentation will be led by Ellen Faran, Class of 73, and is entitled The Cole Resource Center, Addressing Mental Health Challenges. Meet Our Bridges is Class Act's way to introduce our classmates and extended community to our bridge partners who we assist in accelerating their objectives, letting them create awareness for their mission, as well as solicit volunteers, as well as donations. It's my pleasure to introduce my classmate, Ellen Faran, who is here this evening with four of her Cole Resource Center colleagues. Along with her degree in English from Radcliffe College, Ellen has an MBA from the Harvard Business School. Ellen worked for more than 40 years in book and journal publishing, including positions with the Folger Shakespeare Library, Harper and Row, and Houghton Mifflin. Capping her career, she served for 12 years as the director of the MIT Press. Since her retirement in 2015, Ellen has been engaged almost full-time with volunteer work in mental health. She is currently the Director of Operations and Development for the Cole Resource Center and serves as its corporate president. CRC has been a bridge partner of Class Act HR 73 since August 2022. Over to you, Ellen.
Thank you, Stan, and welcome everyone. Without further ado, the Cole Resource Center is a 501c3 nonprofit providing custom mental health support to adults in Massachusetts. We meet people where they are in their journeys and actively engage them in our community with 3 services. Our workforce program offers job search, coaching, and more to individuals living with mental health conditions. Our resource navigation service assists anyone needing help in finding the right options for themselves or their loved ones. And we provide a unique support group for women who are family caretakers. All Cole Resource services are offered free of charge. Please understand that we'll be speaking frankly about mental illness and the challenges of recovery. We know the power of open, stigma-free conversation. All CRC staff are peers, individuals living with mental health conditions, or family members of peers. We share with others our lived experience, our expertise in navigating the healthcare system, and our compassion for what it takes to move forward. We find that there is something uniquely effective about the voices of those who have been there. Maggie?
My name is Maggie Tyler. Welcome, everybody. And yes, I have been there. When my daughter went into crisis 18 years ago, I had nowhere to turn. I was scared, and discussing my situation immediately isolated me from my friends and my family. I really felt like the ground had disappeared beneath me. So my daughter endured multiple hospitalizations and several bouts with suicide attempts. So yes, I do know what it's like to sit in a hospital waiting room, not knowing what will happen next. And I was a top real estate executive, completely in charge of my destiny. And then I found myself at a loss as to how to manage my own daughter's mental health. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to call. And then I actually later realized that I didn't even know how to take care of my own self. So at the onset of my journey, there was no Cole Resource Center. And so while this experience has forever changed me, it has also lit a fire in me, a real commitment that no other mother should have to face something like this without support. So today, as Director of Resource Navigation and Support Groups for the Cole Resource Center, I walk beside other mothers going through the same storm. I hold space for their pain, I offer what I've learned, and I remind them that they are not alone. You know, the need for mental health support is immense. and CRC is here to make a difference in people's lives.
Thank you, Maggie. And thank you everyone for attending this evening. I am Sarah Jane Ripa, and I work with CRC as the Director of Organizational Development. It has never been more important for each of us to have an awareness of and to acknowledge the impacts of mental health conditions. Every single person here tonight is affected by the escalating mental illness crisis, whether you know it or not. Nearly a quarter of adults living in the United States are diagnosed with a mental health condition. In 2022, 6% of all adults experienced severe mental illness, defined as conditions that significantly impair the ability to function in day-to-day life. What this means in Massachusetts, where we live, where your neighbors live, where you live, there are 1.2 million people more now who are living with a mental health condition. 40% of Generation Z, the youngest section of our population, has received a diagnosis, and 57% of those require medication to stay in recovery. And every single one has a family member, friend, or social service worker who is affected by their condition. Not only because of the struggle that their loved one is experiencing and the fear they feel for that person's life and safety, but because no one is making lasagna for families facing mental health crises. No one knows how to talk about it or how to care for the caretakers. If you add to this that the mental health landscape is both overcrowded with information and hideously understaffed, and everyone turns to the internet to find information, we have an even greater crisis. Internet searches are overwhelming, and they're driven by paid advertising, not an individual's actual needs. CRC's Resource Navigation Service and its Women's Family Support Group offer vital support and community when it is most needed. CRC also offers something shockingly unique, a stigma-free space for open and honest discussion for both families and peers. For those of us, myself included, thriving in recovery, one of the most significant challenges we face is finding and maintaining employment. Peers in the mental health community who do not document their challenges and request accommodations to succeed in the workplace are at risk of hurting their work performance. But many peers who do not document their conditions in order to request accommodations, many peers who do document their conditions in order to request accommodations are punished, harassed, and pushed out. But employment is a major pillar of staying in recovery after a mental health challenge. So what do we do? According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, work provides purpose, structure, and opportunities for growth, contributing to a sense of well-being and improved self-esteem. So the challenges must be met, and it's a nightmare to face them alone. So CRC has a double-pronged approach, supporting peers as they face either returning to employment or staying employed despite adversity. My colleague Dana Altman, Workforce Program Specialist, will offer an overview of our workforce services.
Thank you so much, Sarah Jane. The landscape you just described is such an important context to our work. Hi, everyone. My name is Dana Altman, and I'm excited to talk to you about the Workforce Program. The Workforce Program at the Cole Resource Center offers coaching and support to peers in the mental health community. With the equivalent of just one full-time employee, we have a consistent caseload of over 80 clients, of which half are active job seekers. The Workforce Program has successfully absorbed a 100% increase in the number of clients served just in the last 3 months. Anyone who resides in Massachusetts, is over 18, and who is living in an advanced state of recovery with a mental health condition is eligible for our free Workforce Program services. This includes 4 different opportunities defined by cohorts: active job seekers, career advisees, education advisees, and peer community support. For our active job seekers, we meet people where they are in their journey toward new employment and provide everything from resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn review to networking, mock interview, and offer negotiation coaching. We developed our own job search tracking tool to organize and collaborate with our clients, which for some has made all the difference. Take Hillary F. Hillary F. stepped away from her career in direct services more than a decade ago after an intense and debilitating battle with depression. When we met her, she had only just started to leave her home again for more of the medical appointments. After less than 3 months of working with us, she attained exactly the position she was seeking with a local organization and goes to work in person, and finally has an income to be able to enjoy fresh flowers, going to the movies, and even occasionally out to dinner. Our career advisees may be desperate to find meaningful employment, but they don't even know what they can do. Sometimes because they've never been able to pursue a career due to their illness. Sometimes because work was the place that created the firestorm that led to their departure from the workforce. Dylan A's career advising sessions have helped him see that his amazing skill set, which once increased year-over-year sales by more than 500%, can be used for something else altogether. After 5 years out of work, he started a job search with us as a marketing events manager in a new sector. But success looks different for everyone. Recent clients have been employed by companies as diverse as McLean Hospital, public libraries, Rivian, and even Home Depot. We are not clinicians, we are peers, and our lived experience with mental health recovery uniquely positions us to support our clients. We have many clients who just need support navigating their current employment situation. Claudia G came to us on the brink of a second hospitalization from acute workplace stress. Between attending our weekly peer job club, meeting one-on-one with our coaches to talk through challenges and solutions, and joining the monthly co-hosted working and coping support group, Claudia was able to stay out of the hospital and find new ways to manage her stress until finding new employment. We also know that peer support can be life-changing. Rebecca made a difficult decision to leave the toxic work environment at a university, ending a decades-long career to preserve her mental health. After working regularly with our lead peer specialist, Rebecca decided to pursue becoming a peer specialist herself and work in the mental health field. It took just a few months for her to learn of a new pathway that's already providing her with a fulfilling career, but also hope for the future. And our programming is growing. Our education advising cohort has previously primarily served mid-career adults who are looking to pivot and require new knowledge. Well, we're now developing a program to catch young adults who are leaving college in crisis and want to transfer, find alternative pathways, or simply help support them and recognize that leaving their education to protect their mental health is not a permanent decision about that education. The Community NATE is great, and we know of no other organization providing free peer support services for individuals living with a mental health condition who are seeking pathways to productive employment. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Andrea to talk about resource navigation.
Thank you, Dana. I'm Andrea. I'm a resource navigator at the CRC, and I apologize that I'm getting over laryngitis, so I'm a little gravelly. My job is to connect people to different services and information that can help them wherever they are on their mental health journey. At the CRC, we've created a database with hundreds of resources that our community has used over the years. These resources range from everything from residential inpatient programs to outpatient clinics to organizations that can help people find housing to law firms that have experience in working with mental health crises. But I think the most valuable resource that we offer is our expertise in navigating the mental health landscape and our experience with actually seeing mental health recovery, which provides tremendous hope when families need it most. Every inquiry to the CRC starts with a live conversation. The vast majority of our calls are from family members who have a loved one who's struggling. They often don't really know what they need, and we just listen, often for over an hour, for them to tell their story. In general, callers are very eager to share their story and are so grateful to have someone to listen. As the stigma and shame is so great around mental illness, people can't talk to their normal posse and friend group about what's going on. It's not like sharing a physical emergency, like having cancer or pneumonia. People are not going to talk about someone who is having a mental health crisis. Even callers who have family members that have mental illness, they can't believe it's happening to them. And these people are so grateful to talk to someone. A good example of a type of call I get is Jim and Heather, who are the concerned parents of 19-year-old Nick, who's a sophomore at an elite university. Nick was a public high school superstar. He was a very strong student, fantastic athlete, and had a lot of friends. He thrived. Freshman year seemed to go okay, but this year is another story. Nick has begun isolating in his room and skipping class. His residential advisor noticed the behavior change and miraculously got him to go to a couple therapy sessions at the behavioral health center at campus. Sadly, his behavior didn't change, and the dean of students asked him to take off the remainder of the year to get his footing. Nick is now home in his room, depressed, irritable, and incredibly annoyed by his parents. Jim and Heather are shell-shocked and have no care structure or plan for Nick. My first objective with almost any call is to let people know that they're not alone. I know they feel alone because nobody talks about it, but I assure them that I hear stories like theirs all the time. People just aren't talking about it, and it makes you feel lonely and scared. But not only are they not alone, there's so much hope for someone like Nick. I hear great recovery stories all the time. Nick's in the beginning of his journey, and there's so many awesome programs and medications that are likely to help him. Specific programs targeted to this demographic are at McLean, Boston University, as well as a few out-of-state programs. I give Jim and Heather the contact information on all these programs and remind them that all websites are going to look pretty good. So the phone interview and conversation is key. Together, we create a list of key talking points. We work on a concise description of Nick's experience and his needs. We want to ask the organization, what would his therapeutic team look like? How many therapists would he have? Would be in group, one-on-one? What does a typical day look like? In a residential program, there is a lot of downtime. So what does that look like at their program? How does the program incorporate families into the therapeutic mix? Programs don't last forever, and families are usually a key part of the after plan. As Nick is older than 18, how does a program manage communication with the family? Many parents are shocked to learn that when their kids are 18, they're considered adults, and parents no longer have easy access to their child's care team, even if they're paying the bill. This usually isn't a problem when it comes to physical problems of broken bones, but mental health is a personal aspect that surprises families. And then, of course, cost and insurance coverage. If a program doesn't take their insurance, do they have the ability to code an invoice so someone that could file it out of network? And perhaps the most important thing is to get references of other parents whose children have been through the program. Before leaving the phone call, I strongly encourage Jim and Heather to educate themselves on mental health. We have some great podcast videos and local organizations that offer free seminars. I share that many find it empowering to learn more about the topic and connect themselves with others going through a similar experience. Without exception, these families are so incredibly grateful for the discussion we've had and sharing their experience. Jim and Heather are examples of people just starting out on their journey. We also get a lot of calls from caregivers who've been at this for a long time. Their loved ones may have had several hospitalizations and they've seen some success, but have also taken a few steps backwards. The recovery journey is rarely linear. For these callers, perhaps our best resource is our amazing support groups. These caregivers need the companionship and support of others who've walked in their shoes and can brainstorm responses to the unpredictable challenges that families face with a loved one with a long-term mental health condition. To talk more about this, I'll hand it back to Maggie.
Thanks, Andrea. So the Cole Resource Center holds 2 hour-and-a-half support group meetings of our Women's Family Support Group every week via Zoom. So this is a group for all women that are caring for a loved one with a mental health challenge. I would say that most of us are mothers, but we're grandmothers, we're daughters, we're sisters, we're aunts, we're nieces, we're partners, and we're friends. So when I send the welcome letter to new women in the group, I let them know that this is a safe space that embraces and holds them. It's a space to listen, to share, to laugh, and to cry. And this might actually be the only group where someone is grateful that their loved one is actually hospitalized, because then we know that they are safe. And being safe is what matters most to us. Now, some women come to every group. Some may come once a week. and others may only come a few times a year. And these women come from a variety of channels. Our group is pretty large, so it's common for a woman to connect with us through a current group member or even a clinician. And so we interview every woman beforehand to make sure that this group is a good fit for her needs. And we're always committed to maintaining emotional safety for our existing members. It's been amazing to me that the way these women express their vulnerability, their acceptance, and their support for each other. We used to think that women came to the group because they were in crisis, but now we understand that they also have a passion for showing up to help and support others. I can't tell you how many times we have connected woman to woman. So our friend Jolene is always ready to offer support despite caring for her son with chronic schizophrenia. And Miranda shared her son's journey living with schizoaffective disorder and addiction. And Emma, she shared the effects of a particular medication had on her son and was then willing to speak to other women offline about her experience. And then Beth, she doesn't know where her son is, and Margaret's son is incarcerated. And an all too common theme that sort of goes through this group of caretakers is the mistreatment these women suffer at the hands of their loved ones during an episode of illness. It might be verbal, it might be physical. When the person you are pouring your heart into, sacrificing for, standing by, turns that around and then blames you for everything, it is heartbreaking. It can make you question yourself, your choices, and even your worth. But our group discusses limits and boundaries and emphasizes in every meeting the fact that we are doing absolutely the best that we can. We have this family therapist that we frequently work with that says that mental illness is the unwanted guest in your house. So I've been running these groups along with my facilitators for almost 4 years. Our role has never been to cure the loved one, but rather support the caregiver. And in a world where the caregiving is often overlooked, their stories are heard here. And then we replace isolation with connection. There's a tremendous companionship in these groups. Resources are brainstormed and shared, and then they often end up in our database for use by our resource navigators. So our purpose is to ensure that these women feel seen and their experiences and concerns are acknowledged and honored. We hope that they can see themselves again, not just as a caregiver, but as a whole person with voices and dreams and their own stories. It is so easy to get lost on this journey. So we may not be able to provide answers for everything, but there's a healing in this sort of sanctuary that we've created here. Ellen.
Thank you, Maggie. In the spring of 2025, the Cole Resource Center finds itself poised for growth. This is how small we are today. Our staff, mostly part-timers, is equivalent to 4.5 full-time people, 4.5 FTEs. And we serve more than 300 unique clients per year with more than 1,800 total client services. We are supported by our growing network of fellow nonprofits and clinicians who exchange information with us and provide referrals to CRC. I often describe CRC as a 32-year-old startup. The organization was founded in 1993 and pioneered peer mental health support. But in 2020, in response to the pandemic, we not only switched to all virtual service delivery, but made a major pivot in strategy. With our mission expanded to include family members as well as peers, we focused exclusively on the 3 services that we still offer today, those addressing the most pressing unmet needs in our community. We were operating then with all volunteers, but since 2022, we've been gradually adding selected paid positions, and dependent on funding, we will continue to do so. Our challenge, of course, is managing the pace of growth so that increased expenses are covered by increased revenues. This spring, CRC leadership and the CRC Board of Directors are creating the organization's first formal strategic plan, addressing the parameters of our growth over the next 3 years. Our plan will focus on initiatives that support CRC's growth and sustainability, a formal communications strategy, the transition to staffing less dependent on single individuals, and an expanded and more diverse portfolio of revenues. 2 specific requests for my classmates. We are seeking a referral to a Boston area attorney with an affinity for our mission who might join our board, and we would welcome volunteers experienced in fundraising to help us develop a major donor initiative. We are grateful to Class Act 73 for this partnership and to the many classmates who have supported us and me since we became a bridge partner. In the spirit of Class Act, we end our presentation with a few calls to action for our audience. The first, of course, is support the Cole Resource Center, and we'll later provide you with the links that you need to do this. The first is donate. Gifts from individuals are what allow us to offer free services. Donations currently represent 90% of our total revenues, and we operate with minimal overhead so that funding supports service delivery with maximal efficiency. Next, spread the word about our services and volunteer your professional skills, as we mentioned above. We're particularly interested in help with communications, fundraising, and human resources. We recommend that anyone interested in helping others take the Mental Health First Aid course. This is a course sponsored by the National Council for Mental Well-Being. Mental Health First Aid teaches people to safely and responsibly identify and address a potential mental health or substance use challenge by connecting someone experiencing a problem with appropriate support. For anyone facing mental health challenges themselves, we recommend connecting with NAMI Mass, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Massachusetts, which has 2 excellent education and skills training courses, NAMI Peer-to-Peer and NAMI Family-to-Family. And lastly, we ask that you be open to open conversation. The more we share about our journeys to well-being, the more we can all reduce stigma. And speaking of being open, we will now open this up for your questions and comments. I turn it back to Stan.
So please use the raise hand function or just raise your hand if I can see you. Ron, do you have a question?
That was a great presentation. Thank you very much. I really congratulate you on the great work that you're doing. I'm wondering, what process do you use when a client requires a higher level of mental health intervention, particularly pharmacotherapy, drug therapy, or any other interventions, hospitalizations, and so forth? What happens when you encounter that individual?
Briefly, we're referring anybody with that kind of situation to clinical care. And we have a network of people and we know the resources and stuff. We do not provide services for that kind of acute care.
Do you have psychiatrists that are assisting you on an ongoing basis with some of your operations?
Not directly affiliated with CRC, no. We're connected to all the care, all the clinical care places in, sorry, I'm getting a weird Zoom message. It sounds like I might have switched to a different language. Sorry. So no, we don't have like a dedicated group of psychiatrists to whom we refer. We refer people to the Boston area or Massachusetts. clinical care.
Just if I can just address what Ronald said. So Andrea and I, because we're sort of on the front line, we will get people that are in crisis. And so we do have a database of resources for somebody that needs help tomorrow. But also to answer your question, we don't have anybody on our staff, but we get those calls a lot.
I see. Thank you.
To follow up, Ellen, could you talk about your mission statement? Because it seems like you do a lot of things.
Sure. Our mission statement is simple. Our mission statement is we partner with people on their mental health journeys. And I mentioned two words in that simple statement in particular. The first is partner, which is a very deliberate choice of verb. Partner reflects the peer support idea that we're equals of the people, we've traveled the same journey, that kind of thing. But it also speaks to engaging our clients. This is not giving them information passively. This is speaking with them, getting them involved in the community, and understanding, as Maggie talked about, that they can move in their own journey toward being able to help others. So engagement in the CRC community is part of partnering. And then we've talked a lot about journeys. I don't think I need to emphasize that, but people often are going from a feeling of helplessness to understanding that there's hope and gaining resilience. And so we're all about helping people on the journey toward more resilience.
Okay, Nick, you're muted. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, I do have a question. First off, excellent presentation. So I believe it was during the section on career services. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And I believe you mentioned that eligibility for the career services requires someone to be in advanced recovery for mental health. I was curious how your organization defines advanced recovery.
Sure. Sarah Jane, would you be willing to respond to that?
Yeah, I'd love to. Hi, Nick. Thank you for the question. So essentially, our criteria for using our workforce services is that someone can independently coordinate and attend meetings with us, with our staff, that when they attend a meeting with their coach or with the group, that they are respectful and courteous in that setting. And that when we are in a coaching engagement with someone, there's a lot of work to be done. We're job search coaches and career advisors. So what we're doing is we're working with people to, or, if that's not why they're with us, if they're with us for peer support because they have a challenging situation at work that they're hoping to get some support with, these all require effort and engagement on both sides. And we, have action items after every meeting. We follow up with every client after a coaching engagement meeting with what we expect them to do. And we hold them accountable. They hold us accountable for our professionalism. So as long as someone is able to, kind of follow these guidelines, they could be looking for a job as a 10-hour-a-week cashier at Stop and Shop, or they could be looking for a full-time position as the CTO of a major pharma company. It doesn't matter to us. If they're coming and they're following our guidelines and engaging in our community in the way I've described, then that for us is what constitutes a state of advanced recovery. But the key piece is independent, that they can independently do all of these things, and that what they're coming for is, this specific type of support vis-a-vis employment. And that when we have action items and accountability around those things, they are able to maintain that accountability with us. I hope that was a sufficient answer. It felt really long. Sorry.
Yeah, so you make no distinction between someone who's, for example, taking pharmaceutical medications to manage their condition or someone who's in therapy. As long as they're not actively in crisis, then that's...
Correct. And of course there are, so first of all, I do want to say that for workforce, we are a peer support service. We are not clinicians, but we all have experience with many of the facets of mental health recovery, hospitalization therapy, pharmaceuticals, what have you. We do not ask ever for a diagnosis. We have no expectation of disclosure. It is not that it is irrelevant to us. However, there is no reason for us to know that information. What does matter is if someone is managing their symptoms, if their symptoms are under control so that they can engage in respectful back and forth communication with us, that's important. If we notice that there's a deviation from that, then we might recommend that they take a break from coaching services in order to be able to focus on improving those skills. We are not able to help people with their, I want to say this in a correct way, good communication is an occupational skill. So someone has to come to us with a certain level of that, and we can support that and troubleshoot types of communications and styles of communication. But if someone is struggling to be articulate and clear and help us understand what they need, then we would refer them back to their therapeutic team to kind of work on those things. But again, we never ask for a diagnosis. We never talk about medication. We might talk about strategies that help us. I know Dana and our colleague Neil is here as well. All three of us as peers have had open conversations with our clients about ways that we, in particular, support ourselves in the hope that if they hear something useful, that they'll take that with them. But we're not making any diagnoses or offering therapy, so to speak. Again, a very long answer. I hope that was good. And Maggie might have other answers as well. She's not working with workforce clients, but this was in terms of like diagnosis and medication. I think that resource navigation and family support group has a very different, they're not working directly with people who are experiencing mental illness. They're working with people who are looking for solutions for their families. So they have a different approach to that.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Henrietta.
We ask all of those questions. What's the diagnosis? Where are you at now? I mean, we go deep down into the darkness with our clients.
Sarah, I just want to add that in all of our interactions with clients, we're giving them an opportunity to practice talking about mental illness, practice talking about a gap in their work history, practice talking about how they would say something to an employer. We're giving them an opportunity to build good behaviors that will serve them well in the workforce when they return to a job.
Henrietta.
Hi, thank you for a really interesting presentation, and it sounds like you're doing some great work. I am curious, I really like the idea of the parent support group or the caregiver support group. And I'm hearing that in the workplace group, there's a little bit of that going on, but have you considered, or is there a support group for the people that are experiencing the mental illness themselves? Or do you want to start one, or, is that a gap in your services that you want to fulfill?
Sure, we'll turn to Sarah Jane again on that.
So support groups are actually fairly ubiquitous. We've selected the services that we provide our peers based on what does not exist elsewhere. And there's a huge number of peer-to-peer support groups. In fact, there is one that is run by the Depression and Bipolar Society of America Boston chapter called Working and Coping, which we co-sponsor because it is employment related. And our colleague Neil is also a facilitator for DBSA, so he runs that group through DBSA. But it is not something that we've considered adding. We have a weekly job club group, which is not a support group per se, but support group work is something that we see a lot of outside of our organization. So for peers, so we haven't duplicated it. The support group that Maggie runs, I think there is a real lacuna there in the support group landscape for a group like hers that is drop-in, but meets regularly so that people have kind of a wraparound service, are constantly getting resources from each other, and have a trusted group of people that is fairly consistent, but also large. Sorry, I hope I'm not speaking for you, Maggie.
Thank you. That's one of the advantages of being in the Boston area, of having so many other resources available to you. I'm a social worker and live in upstate New York, and it's not the same at all.
So a lot of groups are online now, and the national organizations like NAMI and DBSA, they are running virtual support groups. It's not quite this, it's not the same as being in person, but they are available, and people can join from all over.
Rick?
Thanks. I'm a professor in Louisiana. I'm on the board of Class Act, and I've got a student who's been in and out of, she has difficulty. She's possibly the smartest student I've ever had. And she's now talking about dropping out of the PhD program. From that kind of distance, would she be able to contact you guys? She's told me a lot. And she's now told me there's stuff she hasn't told me. I don't ask, but I try to be open and welcoming to her. She's, we're quite close. But she says she feels isolated and she doesn't know who to turn to. She's not in your region. But if she wanted to talk to you guys, would you have general ideas for her? I don't know if that's a proper question.
We would love to help somebody like that. We have had to make the strategic decision based on our current resources that we need to limit just logistically who we can help. We think that there should be a call resource center in every state. We think we could do that if somebody gave us a huge amount of money. But right at the moment, we've needed to say that we help residents of Massachusetts.
Got it.
Can I add something?
Do you know of any groups like Cold Resource anywhere else in the country?
Not like us, no.
No.
We hope to be a model for SAME, right? We hope to inspire more organizations like that, and or to be able to expand our services to more areas.
Okay. Charlotte?
So sorry for the vagueness. I'm in the middle of a transition of the light, and there's nothing I can do except wait for it to be fully dark before I try to reset anything. Are most of your clients self-referrals? And are you happy with with what you are, the services you can provide as a result of that? Or are there still issues about whether you're serving the people who could use your resources the most?
I think there might be slightly different answers between resources and the women's support group and the workforce program. Maggie, would you like to talk about getting clients for your areas?
Well, the women's support group, we have women from all over the country, from Vancouver to Minnesota to Florida to New Jersey, because our services are for any woman caring for a loved one with a mental health challenge. But so that's the women's group. But as far as people coming to us for resources, we like the workforce program. We're trying to narrow it down to, I say, New England, because I know there's a woman here that is a director of a psychiatric hospital in New Hampshire. So we're trying to limit the resources that we give to New England. It's
Sarah Jane, workforce.
So we've recently, actually, the board has made the decision to restrict the workforce services to Massachusetts, and anyone can self-refer, or we do have a referral form for clinicians. The reason for that is because in terms of fundraising, there are two reasons. Strategically, because we're virtual, we all work remotely. Of course, we could serve anyone anywhere, but in order to grow sustainably and responsibly, we want to be able to serve our closest communities first. And we are a Massachusetts organization. And it's also much easier to apply for local funding. With the restrictions that local funding has, it's usually that they want to support people within their community. So all banks, for instance, are only supporting their own towns.
So my question,
how many people find us themselves versus get referred by a clinician?
Oh, sorry, I was answering the question. I pinged off Maggie. Sorry, Charlotte. So I think about, we probably, if you're just looking at our intake rate, probably 50-50 between referrals from a clinician who's familiar with our work. Maybe 70-30 actually. So 70% of the people who come to us have been referred to us either directly using our referral form or have been told by a clinician that they should seek our services. And then the other 30% find us either organically or through the DVSA Boston Working and Coping support group, or another group like that where our clients have a presence maybe.
And I could just add to that, Charlotte. So, I've been a mother that's frantic. When you're frantic, you're in crisis, you get on the web, on the internet, and you just start typing in, you start calling, and you may have made 12 or 15 calls in one day, and one of them was to us. And so when we asked them, how did you find out about that, about us? And they're like, I don't know. I've made 15 calls today. You must have come up when I Googled, you came up. I don't know where I heard about you, but they're on their 15th call, and we might be the 15th call. So we try to nail it down, how they hear about us, how they find us, but it's really hard for a family that's in crisis.
and then the follow-up is, are the results of just letting it happen organically seem satisfactory? This is sort of where Ron and Nick's questions intersect about what your relationship with the professionals and what your ability to assess the state of the clients are. But it sounds like it's not an issue in any kind of an acute way. Thank you.
Deborah.
Sorry about that. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. And Sarah, thank you for the invitation and the reminder to join here and learn more. I'm an executive coach, and some of the people that I've run into, I pretty much work with professionals 50 and older. And Sarah reached out to me to talk about maybe some of the people that I work with. Do I need any of the services here? And introduce me to the Cole Resource Center. I have two questions. One is, one person that I've run into recently is 29 years old and has nonverbal learning disorder. And I have a second client also who has something similar, very, very depressed, no confidence in their competence. Is that something that, no prior hospitalization, nothing like that, but part of what you said today was they need to come to you with the ability to go and look for a job and have a two-way conversation. They can do that, but moving further, I don't know if they could do that. Do you work with people like that? And then I have another question about a different type of client.
Sarah Jane.
Sure. So most of our clients are struggling with motivation and a lack of confidence. That's, certainly ubiquitous, or fairly ubiquitous among the people that we serve. If a client is not able to accomplish the action items that we agree upon for what we're working on together, either doing a skills assessment for career advising or, participating in their job search by using our job search tracker and looking for jobs so that we can talk about cover letters. If they're not able to do that because of those issues, that is when we would recommend that, before they continue meeting with us, that they do seek other forms of support in order to be able to, overcome that. But confidence is an issue we talk about all the time with in our meetings. Motivation is an issue. So these things do come up, but if they're debilitating, that's not something that we can solve. We do really emphasize that they should be seeking a different form of support for the resolution of those issues. What was the second question?
Well, thank you, Sarah, for that answer. You and I have talked about that a little bit. I'm just curious, do you have recommendations? They both are working with psychiatrists for medication, and they're both working with therapists, verbal therapy. So I don't, what's the next thing that they could do, right? So do you have NVLD recommendations? Is that something I would call you separately for?
I would refer you to my colleague, Andrea, in resource navigation. And if she weren't able to support, if our resource navigators didn't have the resources to support someone's needs, they do have we have resources for resources.
Perfect. Okay. My other question is another client has a child, a 22-year-old child who's still in the school system, has a physical disability, is deaf, and is autistic. But I was thinking of this more for the mother support group. The child, that 20-year-old is not, is very, very strong, and sometimes beats on herself, but beats on mom too. So is there, would that be a group that she should reach out to you about for just support?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
This might be a good lead, and we have the information about how to contact CRC. So,
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions, Ron?
Yes, I was wanting to just talk for a second about financing and viability. I also run a small nonprofit organization, and this is an area where we all find very awkward to be working in because we want to be doing programmatic stuff and we don't want to be fundraising, but we all know that we have to do it. So my comment is that I wonder, have you guys launched a fundraising campaign? I can tell you that we did this a few years ago when our finances were not adequate to really support the expanding programs that we really wanted to do around the low-income world. We give away medical software in the low-income world. And I was shocked at the effect of sitting down with a group of people and designing a campaign, naming it, promoting it, and launching it. And all of our donations went up really significantly because of the concentrated work that then happened and the very significantly increased level of attention that we got from all kinds of donors. So I'm wondering, have you guys launched a campaign for fundraising to help your finances?
We have not done something like what you described. We do twice a year, reaching out to donors and new donors, but not a focused campaign. I'd love to talk to you more about that, Ron.
Yeah, Alan, call me up about this. We also have an annual fundraiser, which we have historically used for most of our financial needs. But when we launched the campaign, it was a totally different story because the donations actually started to happen on an ongoing basis rather than a one-time-a-year basis at the fundraising event. So anyway, let's talk and I'll tell you what
Sounds terrific. Thank you.
I think it would really help you guys because you are doing some fantastic work there.
Thank you.
Have time for one more question, or if we don't have a question, we can close.
Diana, could you show the slide with the contact information?
Yes, 1 second. And I've posted this in the chat as well.
So this was in the chat, and you'll receive an email with the information after the webinar. Thank you.
Good. Well, Ellen, thank you, and thank you to all the presenters, and thank everybody for attending. Our next Meet Our Bridges webinar won't be until the fall. Please watch your emails with all the details of our upcoming programs. If you have any ideas for topics for future webinars or would like to volunteer as a presenter or suggest a presenter, please email us at classacthr73@gmail.com. We would love to partner with other class acts and alums. Again, thank you for attending. It was a wonderful presentation, and we'll see you next time. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.